What do women especially need to know? What is it that we primarily, first off, need to understand about how men and women communicate differently? Thank you so much for joining us today on Second Act TV. I am so happy to welcome back dating and relationship coach and the host of Last First Date Radio, Sandy Weiner. Sandy, thank you so much for joining us again.
So fun to be back, Silke.
Well, over the last few years, you've been a big supporter of Second Act. You were here when we hardly had any subscribers. You gave great information then. We're still getting comments on some of your videos. And I'm really excited to have you back for an important topic that I know is top of mind for you: communication. The foundation and pretty much root of all issues with dating and relationships. And we can talk about it, but somehow communication between men and women remains a mystery. So let's talk about that today. What do women especially need to know? And you primarily work with women. However, the advice you give might be enlightening for some of our men to listen to as well. What is it that we primarily, first off, need to understand about how men and women communicate differently?
Well, first of all, I do have some men in my practice. Somebody just reached out who's been listening to my podcast and said, "Do you know anybody who can coach me?" And I said, "Hey, get on a call with me. Let's see if it's a good fit." So I think all people have trouble communicating. And where we get tripped up is we often want somebody to read our mind. We think one thing and they think something else, and that's where the misunderstandings come up.
Yeah. Well, you bring up two really important points, I think. One, we women expect men, many of us, to read our minds. We've actually done separate videos on that because that is so important. And then, we assume something that really isn't happening, and then we feel like we're not being heard. Well, what can women do? What's the secret to making a man hear us? What can we do better?
First, understand what's going on for you. Like, that's the part that's missing for a lot of people. They don't even know why they're having these thoughts. And so if you're not understanding, I am having a complete reaction to something. And when you understand that, then you can actually bring it up. And you can even couch it with, "Hey, this is a story I'm making up. I don't know if it's true or not, but can you help me understand what was going on for you?" So when you talk about things in a way that's non-confrontational, the worst thing you can do is, "Can we talk?" And just to say, "Look, I feel that I may have misunderstood something, or maybe you misunderstood me, and I'd like to get closer to you." So stating the intention up front, I want to get closer and I want to have this conversation to make sure we're both understood. It's a practice, it's a muscle, because we're so used to the subtleties. Men don't get subtleties so much. They need to hear you say it outright, and many of us also have this belief that if somebody loves us, then they would just know. They don't. It's amazing.
I know, that's crazy. No, you're right. And I still find myself doing that, or thinking that, and then I'd kind of slap myself and no, this is Silke. This is what we talk about on your show.
Right.
Is that and I think maybe as a women of our generation that we just don't know how to ask for what we want.
We are not trained to be direct communicators, and it also depends a lot on how you grew up. If you grew up in a home with indirect communicators, and many of us grow up with passive-aggressive communicators, and I have a quiz on my website to identify different types of communicators, if I can share that, the different types. So I've named them the lion, or the lioness is a direct communicator. That's somebody who is pretty secure in who they are. They're not reactive. They know how to process stuff, and they know how to ask for what they want without being offensive. Then we have the scorpion, which is the opposite. That's the aggressive communicator who's going to yell at you and assume the worst and be reactive. not think before they talk. And then we have the puppy, which is the passive, and the people pleaser, which a lot of women, unfortunately, have been raised to just be quiet and be pleasing. And then we have the koala, which is the passive aggressive. So the passive aggressive is often brought up in a home where there was confusion. Sometimes people were direct, sometimes they weren't. And we don't want to have to say what we need to say, so we kind of couch around it. Maybe we're a little sarcastic. And so, depending on who you are, who you're talking to, how you were raised, it all affects how we communicate.
Mm-hmm.
And so, the most important thing is get some support around being a more direct communicator and really notice the ways that you're not being direct and that you're using maybe sarcasm or subtlety to try and convey what you need and not being direct. And it also, just want to add one more thing, is that we often text these kinds of conversations instead of talk them. And so my word of advice is anything that involves emotion, tone, body language, get on the phone or meet somebody in person, because texting is a horrible way to communicate anything emotional. And unfortunately, it's become the way we hide our communication with people.
Yeah. Well, so what are some, quick communication tips that you can leave with women that might make an immediate difference if they just were more aware of it? And I put myself in that category when you were talking about sarcasm, and that is so me, and it's wrong, and I know that.
Well, it's hard to break, and we deflect with humor when we don't want to be direct because it's vulnerable. And so it's good that you know that you are a koala, and I used to be one also. And I still can revert back to that because it is my go-to place. It's where I was hardwired to put up guards, to be funny instead of direct, because it's hard to actually open up and say, I'm feeling sad or I'm really hurt. So when you have something for women who want to talk to men, first check in with them and see if it's a good time. And we often will interrupt them in the middle of something they're focused on, and they're much more single focused than women, generally speaking. So knowing it's a good time, because otherwise the conversation will either annoy him or fall on deaf ears, and then you'll say, see, evidence, he doesn't listen, he doesn't care.
uh, yeah, the right time. I know, and I wonder if other women think like that too. Sometimes I have those conversations or try to have them when I'm just like gotten fed up. I let things boil, and I know that's wrong as well, and that just will totally mess up your communication style. I know something you said too off camera. I think we talked yesterday. Is women just tend to talk more than men, where men just they're sound bites. I
Yes.
think that's something, if we can remember that that's not being rude, but that's just how they communicate.
Yes. And one thing that you said that I want to touch on too is if we come to the conversation and we haven't processed, we're bringing all of our garbage to the table. And it's really important to first process what's really going on for me. Because often, like I spoke about at the beginning of this conversation, you can be triggered by something somebody said that has nothing to do with that person. And so we have to first realize this conversation may not even have to take place. It might just be me. I'm overreacting because I was abandoned by my father. And so when I didn't hear from him for 2 hours, I thought he was abandoning me, but that's not true. I can see evidence that he has always shown up. So he just didn't text. But then I need to let him know, when you can't text me, can you just send me a quick something to let me know that you got my text and we'll talk later. So knowing what you need is really important. What do you need from your partner? State your intention. So at the beginning of a conversation, we have to let a person know, like I said before, also, like I'm having this conversation because I want to clear things up, because I want to get closer to you, because I'm feeling some distance. That sets somebody up for success, because often we come in and somebody's already on the defensive. That's why we need to talk is the worst thing you can say, because it puts somebody on like, oh my God, I did something terrible. They're going to criticize me.
Yeah.
So this isn't criticism. This is clarity. And this is, I need to tell you how I feel because it's important. You probably don't know that you hurt my feelings, and I want to let you know how we can do better. Keep it concise. So now I'm going to address what you said. So you want to keep it concise because somebody who's a linear thinker, and many men think linear analytically, they are not thinking in the way many women do, which is I'm attaching, what happened this morning with what happened 2 weeks ago, with the fact that I saw my friend, and then, oh, she has a PhD and she went to Harvard, and like he's like going, I don't know what the issue is anymore because I don't know how to track you. And so keep it concise, keep to the point, and be clear about what you want from this conversation too. What's the outcome you're seeking? And then you listen without talking. So there's a lot of like active listening that takes place in a tough conversation where people take turns. And I had this with my daughter. We were not getting along, and I said, let's have a conversation. You go first because I know how to process. So I had already processed. I had empathy for myself. I knew what was going on. And I listened. And then when she was done, I said, are you finished? And she said, yes. And then I started talking. And she said, oh, and one more thing. And I said, no, it's not your turn anymore. You'll have a chance to come back. But we have to respect each other and give each other the floor. And so it's really about respect. It's about brainstorming together for solutions. It's not, here's what I need, do this for me. It's collaborative. It's a dialogue.
Yeah. Yeah. When you just said that, it reminded me of a conversation, and I'm wondering if you agree with this. Try to keep the word but out of it when you respond.
Yes. But negates everything you said before.
Yes.
So I like you a lot, but okay, you didn't really. Who cares if you like me? Because it doesn't mean anything. So yes, I like you and so substitute and for but. But I had somebody on my podcast, actually, I just said but, and she used it in a different way. And I thought this was interesting. She said, when it comes to things that we're upset about, like if we're complaining about something, and let's say I was overwhelmed, there were so many dishes this morning that somebody left out, and I'm just, I have so many dishes. And then she said, when you add, but I'm grateful for, that helps you to switch gears. So I'm really upset, but I'm grateful for the fact that I have dishes and that I live in a house and I have enough food. And it helps you to kind of rewire your brain. So in that case, the but helps you to get out of victim mode and into appreciation.
I like that. I have not heard that. That makes a lot.
Yeah.
I like that. I like that. That's great. See, I mean, we can talk about communication all day. We're starting to come to the end. We got about 4 minutes or so, and you have some of the material sent me. There's a question on here that I want to know the answer to, and that is, what works like magic to make you irresistible to the men you like? That's a great. I have no idea where you're going with this.
So men want to feel like a hero, and I know you've had other people talk about that. And so using words like provide, protect, support, make a man feel like a hero and make him like you more. And so let's say asking for help, I could really use your support. And the way most people will ask, like, let's say you're living with a partner and you want them to take out the garbage. And you say, I've told you 100 times it's garbage night. Why don't you ever take out the garbage? So you become a nag, and it's not very attractive. And he has no inspiration to be taking the garbage out. However, if you reframe it and say, when you take out the garbage, I really appreciate your support. It means so much to me. Thank you. Wouldn't you be more motivated to take out the garbage?
Yeah. No, yeah, you're right. The hero response, that and asking for help and saying not can you help me, but I need your help. That was the hardest thing for me to, even on an interview that I think it was Lisa Copeland, the interview. I couldn't say it. I need your
Yes.
help. And yeah, I've learned a lot from all of
Yeah.
these, from
Well,
all of these.
again, it's connected to the koala. You're not used to asking for support because it's direct and it's vulnerable. What if they say no? And why should I have to ask for support? If they love me, they would do it for me. They would know what I needed. And so we're fed all these lies that we don't need to ask for help.
Hmm.
So using other words like provide, this is what you could provide for me. Or, I could use your protection. Like I even had in one of my online dating profiles that I am really happy when something happens, I don't remember, and I get scared when there's a blackout and there's nobody home. But if you were there, I would feel better. Something like that. So letting a man know, like, I could use your help when I'm scared in the dark. Instead of, I'm so tough, I can handle everything. And what that does is it says to a man, I don't need you. I don't really want you. There's no space in my life for you. So creating those moments of him saying, I have a purpose here.
Hmm. Yeah. Well, lots to think about. I know that you have a whole course on communication, and we'll link to that. You have courses and seminars coming up all the time throughout the year. We will have your website as well. Sandy, is there anything else you'd like to add on this topic before we go on to our next segment?
Take a breath. I would say when you're having conversations with anybody, just that pause, there's a real power in the pause. And in my communication course, I quoted Viktor Frankl, and I don't have the exact quote here, but in between, reaction and response, there's the pause. And when something happens, that time to process is everything. And so the people who have the most successful conversations and relationships are the people who know, take a breath, take a pause, figure out what's really going on, because it's usually not what you think.
Okay, great. Well, thank you, Sandy. I look forward to the comments on here. We do get lots of comments from men, and I'm anxious to see what, do you agree, disagree? It makes sense to me. So I look forward to talking to you again soon on Second Act TV. If you haven't done so already, please be sure to subscribe to our channel. The button is right over here. Just click on through to YouTube, and when you see the little bell right next to the subscribe button, hit that too. We'll notify you every time we launch a new video. See you next time.